wildlife care specialist.
Sorry.
Got it. So my name is Jessica. I'm a senior wildlife care specialist at the San Diego Zoo, and I have been in the zoological field for about 20 years, give or take. And I've been heavily involved in conservation work for at least 6 years. But when you're a care specialist at a zoo, it's pretty much all conservation work. Um, and I have been with Action for Cheetahs in Kenya for about 6 years as the US Outreach and Fundraiser Coordinator. So this is one of our outreach events that we will have an opportunity to fundraise throughout. So throughout the event, we will have opportunities to donate to ACK and the work that we do. So look out for that along the way. Let's see, where's the chat? There it is. All right, who's going to be the first brave one?
What?
You can also feel free to turn on your mic and just say hello.
Cool. Well, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Delaney. I am a senior animal trainer at Turtle Bay Exploration Park in Redding, California. And I have actually worked with Action for Cheetahs since 2013. Kind of took a little bit of a break, went and did my master's work with them in conservation education and making a little booklet that we could give out to educate school kids. Got to do my master's presentation on that and spent about 3 months out there in Kenya, which was really awesome. And then I'm just now kind of getting back into things, helping out with volunteering for the fundraising and outreach team.
Thank you. All right. Good job, Gabby. Gabby is from Orange County and she owns her own dog training business. Awesome. Currently trying to get more involved in conservation and anti-poaching canine training. Oh, you'll love Mike's talk then. We have had a lot of actually speakers in the past events that are canine trainers for conservation too. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. Hopefully Mike can help you guide the way somehow. All right.
And I don't have anyone in the waiting room, Jessica. So if we want to get started.
Absolutely. All right. So we have two guest speakers for us today, Mike Veale and Amanda Collins. We're going to start off with Amanda. She is our newest member of the Action for Cheetahs in Kenya team as our US Action for Cheetahs Cool Crafts Manager. And we all know that crafting is cool, but that's not exactly what this is. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to her and she can explain a little bit about what she does with ACK and her career in conservation. Okay, I'll hand it off to her after I do the mission.
Sorry.
It's okay. I jumped the gun a little bit.
You're good.
For those of you that don't know about Action for Cheetahs in Kenya, we are a nonprofit based out of Kenya, and it formed from our director, Mary Wykestra, out of CCF, so Cheetah Conservation Fund. She used to work for them in the early 2000s and then formed ACK. So our mission is to promote the conservation of cheetahs through research, awareness, and community partnership or participation in Kenya. So we do a few things from research, field surveys, data collections, to training canines to detect scat, as well as outreach. So these are kind of staples, maybe not the canine part, but research and outreach is kind of the staples of wildlife conservation all over the world. Okay, good. Next slide. Make sure I don't miss anything.
Oh gosh.
Alrighty, so like I mentioned, there's going to be opportunities throughout this chat, throughout this event to donate to ACK. And we just want to kind of share a little bit about what your money can go for, where it can go for. So here you can see $10 could give supplies for one school visit, support digital data collecting for 1 month, and meals for 1 day during field work. $25 can go to help a conflict mitigation toolbox, one student workbook, or one spay and neuter for community cat and dog. And $50 could get you 1 day of national survey fieldwork, 1 week of dog training, and 1 week of camera trapping. So just a few of the things that your funds and your donations could help us out in. Go ahead. And go back. Oh, okay. Forward. There we go. Oh, all right. Back. There you go, right there. So this is our Venmo, kind of new age technology here. You can just take your phones out and take a picture of the QR code, and that will take you straight to our Venmo. You can also screenshot it now, and if you want to donate anytime in the future, you have our Venmo account. And then the next slide is our QR code to our website. So if you are interested about the work that ACK does, then you can join our newsletter or just visit our website to learn more. All right, now back to Amanda. Welcome, Amanda Collins. I look forward to hearing from you as I'm still getting to know you myself. So Amanda's going to speak for about 10 minutes, and then we'll open it up for any questions. Feel free to type in questions in the chat, or you can unmute yourself afterwards, and we can just have a nice conversational roundtable.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. If not, if you have any problems with any audio or anything as well, please feel free to put that in so we can get that fixed. But yeah, my name is Amanda Collins. I have kind of a unique coming to for ACK. So my background is primarily in animal care as well. So I actually have 2 titles. So I am the U.S. Program Manager for Cool Crafts and help out with some of the ACK outreach programs and things like that as well. But my more so main job is the carnivore curator position at Fossil Rim Wildlife Center in Texas. And so I got started with my animal care career back in 2010, I think. No, 2012, sorry. So I started my career out in at Ohio State and in Ohio. And I was an animal sciences major. I originally wanted to be a veterinarian, as many people probably do when they want to start working with animals. So I thought that was going to be my career path. I quickly volunteered as much as I could at shelters, at clinics, things of that nature. And I got my first zoo job. It was actually a admissions position. So nothing to do with animals, nothing to do with really conservation. But that kind of segued me into getting my animal care career. So I interned at the Columbus Zoo for a semester, got a seasonal position for several years. I was there for about 4.5 years. And I worked with several different animals, Australia species, and then some in Africa, but mostly hoofstock stock and primates and no real carnivores, honestly, but that is where my heart lied. So I wanted to try and get a little bit more into that path. And so through that, I was able to do a lot of networking, honestly. It really helped me to kind of branch out. There were several people there that I was seasonaling with, and they had done internships at other places. And so I had heard of this place called Wildlife Safari, and it's out in Oregon. So essentially all the way across the country as far as you could possibly go. And so I said, why not? I moved out there for an internship, and lucky enough for me, I got a job 4 weeks later. So I was part of the carnivore team. I dealt with lions, tigers, bears. You can all say, oh my, in your head. Cheetahs was a big part of my day. Wildlife Safari and Fossil Rim are actually 2 of the #1 cheetah breeding facilities in the United States. So it really helped me enter the cheetah world And cheetahs are honestly one of the biggest animals that I wanted to be a part of. Lions are great as well, but cheetahs have always held my heart. And so having that job was amazing. I was doing the day-to-day care of all of the animals, really out in the field, doing a lot of that stuff, really being in the office or anything of that nature. But I became the lead keeper there. And again, just kind of opened me up to connections and meeting new people in the field, getting to know different organizations like ACK, and kind of figuring out that those are out there and how to get more involved with them. And so through several conferences and things like that, I just kind of had heard more and more about different cheetah organizations and different cheetah facilities. And like I said, since we were one of the top breeding facilities for cheetahs, cheetah people were basically all I talked to and got to know. And that was part of how I became here at Fossil Rim. And so I have only been at Fossil Rim for about 1.5 years now. And this position with the Cool Crafts manager became open almost a year ago, probably 8 months ago now. And through the Cheetah SSP, and again, some of those connections in the cheetah management world of zoos, I had found out about ACK and some of the amazing work that they've done. Like many of you, I'm sure, first got interested in training just my dogs at home and how I could, be involved with them and make them do different things, and just kind of got me interested in animal behavior at first. And so when I found out about ACK and all the amazing work that we do with scat detection dogs, it was just a really cool program and something that just made me want to get a little bit more involved. And who doesn't love, anything to do with cheetahs? And so applied for the position. And like I said, I've been doing that for about 8 months now. So I'm still fairly new, but still trying to get the hang of it. So this is one of the first big events that I've actually been a part of. So thank you guys all for being here. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you give me a little bit of grace and let me know if there's any changes you want to have made next time. But part of my job for ACK is mostly doing a lot of the intern and volunteer paperwork and kind of helping out getting those started and getting people involved with those programs. I have never physically been to Africa yet, unfortunately, but one day, hopefully soon, I will be out there and be able to see a little bit more about what we do actually in Africa. But another big part of what I do is dealing with the cool crafts. So if some of you don't know, we have an amazing partnership with a lot of local artists in Kenya. And so Mary is able to have those connections, and she's able to get those crafts and kind of talk to those vendors and know, what people here on the US side are interested in. And then we get them here on the US side and we do several different things with them. We're trying to do a big wholesale project with several different zoos. So if any of you guys work with any institutions that are interested in getting some of your crafts into your gift shops, that is part of what I help do, and try to get those order numbers and catalogs out to you guys so that you know what we have as an option to be able to put out. Another big thing is also Mary goes on a big fall tour every year. So she brings crafts around with her, and I help try to facilitate some of that as well, and making sure that all of the cool craft inventory and things like that are up to date so that she knows what she has and she can carry that with her throughout the fall tour. And some of you are probably wondering how you get those crafts all the way from Africa to the United States. And that is also a very interesting process. A lot of it is people that have already went over to Africa, if they're going over to volunteer school programs. Jessica also goes over for a nice adventure safari as well. So if you guys are interested in that, you should definitely go with her. But people that go on that can help bring over some of that. One thing I haven't delved into too much yet, but luckily enough, the person before me in this position helped out with it a lot, is getting all of the codes and all of that stuff formulated and put together so that when customs asks, why do you have that doll that was made and is a craft? I can give her those numbers and they can go cataloged into how you can get those across the border safely and back into the United States. So a big portion in that, and then also trying to help with a lot of the social media and just getting the word out about ACK and cool crafts. We really like to try and advertise for those because not a lot of people know about the cool crafts program. Like I said, it's a really awesome thing and helps get some of the local artists in Kenya, just some valued some value, I guess, to what they love to do. And it's a really cool, awesome thing. Like I said, I've never been over there, but one of my big projects that I would really like to do is be able to get over there and know them a little bit better and start doing some bios on them and get the word out and kind of do some advertising for, what they do over there and why buying cool crafts really matters and how it can impact just our mission as ACK in a whole as well. So that is kind of all I really had. If anyone has any questions, or Jessica, if you think I'm missing anything or have anything to add to that.
Do you remember what COOL stands for?
Oh, I do. So, well, cheetahs, otters, owls, and lions. Is that what I mean? Right?
Yeah. So ACK is kind of one part of an umbrella nonprofit, with Cool Crafts being a part of that as well. So there's definitely a lot of different aspects to this nonprofit, with ACK and Cool Crafts just being a portion of it. So again, please go onto our website and dive in and learn all about what we do and our different avenues. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see anything in the chat so far. Amanda, how many cheetahs have you helped raise or birth?
Good question. I don't actually know the full answer to that, but a lot. So currently we have 28 cheetahs here at Fossil Rim, and we had, I think the largest number that we had at Wildlife Safari was 32. So a lot of cheetahs, a lot of babies that we've had. Some of the really cool things that I've been involved with throughout the several years is part of our fostering program. So being able to, take a baby from here at Fossil Rim and either fly it or drive it all the way across the country to put in with another litter. So if, we've had many a times that mom, unfortunately, is just not taking care of her baby for one reason or another. Usually it's because she only has 1 to 2 and she doesn't really produce the hormones and just kind of physiological element to want to take care of her babies. A big part of that, if you guys aren't aware, is they do have a 50% mortality rate out in the wild. And so part of what cheetahs have kind of evolved to, if you will, is, they're not really going to put the time and effort into raising 1 to 2 young when the likelihood of them surviving is very, very low. So we still see that in human care and here over on the captive side. And so they will reject their young and just not care for them at all. And so obviously we are not quite as harsh as the wild, so we can step in and be able to take care of those young. And so part of fostering, it has been 100% successful every time we've tried, which is really cool. Luckily enough, cheetahs can't count. And so if we take 1 to 2 babies and place it in with a mom that's already had her litter that's up to about 2 to 3 weeks old, we rub them in with the other cubs and mom takes care of them as if they were her own. So it's a really cool, awesome thing. Has not yet been tried, nor do I know if it ever will be tried with like any babies here in the United States and those in Africa, because it is hard enough to get permits for any animals to cross into the United States into Africa or vice versa, let alone a 2 to 3 day old baby. So, but really cool, awesome thing. It's really awesome to know that that works. And we've done it at least 5 times that I can think of that I've been a part of. And again, that's either flying or driving. Probably one of the biggest ones was actually from my home state in Ohio to Oregon. So a really cool, awesome thing to be involved in for sure.
And did you say the window of time that you can introduce a baby to a different mom?
It's about the longest time frame has been about 3 weeks. So it was 100% successful. The litter that it was introduced into was 3 weeks old, and the baby was about 3 days old. And
wow.
so it does present some challenges. It was, like I said, successful. Unfortunately, most of the time, if mom rejected them, the odds of them having issues are pretty high too. We don't always know why she rejects them. So unfortunately, in that case, that baby did not end up making it, but the cross fostering was deemed successful since mom was taking care of it. But that's about the longest time span that we have discovered works. I don't know anyone that would try it longer than 3 weeks, but still a pretty
Like,
decent.
when you say longer than 3 weeks, do you mean like after they're 3 weeks old?
Yeah.
They can't. Okay.
Just because once they get so big too is another problem. If you have 4 in the litter and then you add in a 2-day old, those 3-week olds they're pretty big at that time. So they're kicking that 2-day old off the belly. And so yeah, I don't know anyone that would really probably try it past that unless there is some extenuating circumstances. But
No, I could see that's very hard to have the perfect window to match up a newborn.
yeah.
Well, that's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Let's see. Could you present more about projects ACK does in the field and how your work in human care positively affects the wild situation / issues? I can speak a little bit about it. That's not my forte here, but I will say a lot of the outreach that we do is making the cheetah not a negative animal to the eyes of the communities. So primarily it's the farmers. Cheetahs are up a lot during the day, and they tend to be the cat that's a little less elusive around the farmlands. And when farmers see that their livestock has gone missing or has been killed, and then they see a cheetah walking by, they assume that the cheetah is the culprit. And that's really not the case in this situation. And so part of the work that we do with the canine scat detection dogs is analyzing the cheetah scat and analyzing what they eat and actually bringing that data back to the farmers and educating them that guess what, there's no goat, there's no sheep in this cheetah's stomach, and it's most likely a leopard that is killing the livestock. Now, we don't want to turn leopards into a bad light either, but what's happening is because the cheetahs are being seen by the farmers, they're sometimes being murdered for that reason. So if we can kind of educate the farmers that it's not the cheetah that's actually killing their livestock, then hopefully we can decrease that number of deaths by the farmers, if that makes sense. I know a lot of times too, we go out into a lot of junior high and high school classrooms and just educate about wildlife in general and the importance of the wildlife in the ecosystem. Just because the schooling system over there doesn't really include a lot of that. Let's see, Amanda, do you have any other I don't know the word. Do you have anything else to talk about that we do over there?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say, we take school groups and we host several universities and such that can come out and volunteer at ACK. And so part of that is just like Jessica was talking about, just really honestly getting some of that connection to the land, to the wildlife, to the people that live there, and then bringing that back over. And part of that too, working with universities, a lot of that is students hoping to go into the animal care field in some form or fashion, and getting them introduced to that conservation aspect of it and seeing, when places support organizations and nonprofits like ACK, they can see that real world, real lifetime, that things are happening and things are, being conversed to the community and how that conservation is impacting that community, those animals, that species. ACK also does have a lot of partnerships with human care facilities, so zoos, and that's part of. Luckily enough, we get a lot of the money and the funding to be able to bring universities over, to bring people over, to get them educated and to talk about these topics, because it's one thing to really say, hey, we need help with cheetahs, but it's another to again have people out on the landscape and see in real time what's going on, what's happening, and why it makes a difference. And part of that too is, from my side of things, and in the human animal care world, a large part of what we're trying to do is perfect some of the science on certain subjects to help be able to give back, I guess, to the wildlife and the wild care side of it. So certain things like, being able to perfect AI techniques or IVF techniques, things like that, to hopefully one day be able to put those techniques out into the wild population. We are not technically, releasing animals out onto the landscape like we wish we could. But it's one method to be able to support their species out in the wild that we can do here from the United States. And again, when you see those partnerships with places like San Diego, Living Desert, and they have supported projects for ACK, and then they're helping with all these other projects on the other side of things as well. It kind of just all comes together and kind of full circle for the whole conservation aspect of the species. So hopefully that makes sense.
Awesome, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, any other questions? Not sure if that was somebody trying to talk or not. All righty, well, thank you so much, Amanda. And we're gonna go ahead and kind of flip through those slides again to give you another opportunity to donate if you would like, or to get down our social media account. So this is our social media handle. Feel free to follow us. We are on Facebook and Instagram. I'm not sure if we're on the Twitter or not. I don't tweet, so. Oh, there you go. There's the Twitter sign. Look at that.
Yes, we are, yeah.
Um, all right. Here is the slide again on where your funds can go. Again, it's any amount is helpful. We are a complete nonprofit. All of the ACK staff in Kenya are locals, are Kenyans, and then there's some support staff and volunteers outside of Kenya as well. And then here's our Venmo again with some beautiful cheetahs. The one on the bottom right, I believe, is one of the San Diego Zoo's cheetahs. I'm not sure which one, but if you see that soccer ball there, that's one of the items that we sell. And what's really cool about it, I think this is the small one. We have a regular size ball and a small ball. And if you purchase a large ball and you see the little cute cheetah head on it, then we send a small ball straight to Kenya to one of the local schools. So it's not only are you supporting ACK, but you're also giving a nice gift to some children at a school in Kenya. Right. Do we have another? And thank you for your donations. Always appreciated. All righty. So we have a very special guest, Mike Veale, who I've known for a little bit now, and I've had the pleasure of hearing speak a handful of times. So Mike Veale is a Southern California native who has worked extensively with animals for the majority of his conservation career. From a young age, he has been passionate about nature, wildlife, and anything he could do to protect it. He focused on gaining experience from a young age, taking on some of his first conservation projects at the age of 14 as a Boy Scout. And as a senior wildlife care specialist at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, he had the unparalleled access to two of the last remaining North African white rhinos. Awesome. As well as dozens of other endangered species. In 2014, after years of watching the wild populations of animals under his care rapidly dwindle, Mike decided to take action. His lengthy wildlife care career, combined with his experience in conservation, working as a ranger in California, and active combat sport heavy lifestyle, gave Mike the unique experience needed to fight on the front line of conservation. Mike traveled to South Africa and passed an intensive boot camp training required before finally becoming an anti-poaching ranger in the Greater Kruger National Park. After several months of working specialized rhino protection detail in poaching operations, Mike returned to America and Global Conservation Force was formally founded. He continues to go back and forth between the US, Asia, and Africa, working on direct impact wildlife conservation projects, community-based conservation projects, and anti-poaching patrols, focusing on counter wildlife trafficking, wildlife protection, and conservation efforts in Africa and Asia. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Mike Veale of Global Conservation Force.
Thank you for having me. So I wanted to keep it a little fluid instead of a bunch of slides with the tight timeline. So with my bio already thrown out, that's my very public generic bio, but if there's questions about my past work and how the road got to here, I'm more than happy to share that. But I'll kind of dive into what we as Global Conservation Force do. So we work in up to 23 countries a year. We have umbrella species, but those species act as the public ambassadors for the entire habitat crisis zones. So we generally have the rhino, elephant, pangolin, giraffe, African painted dog, snow leopard, and saiga as our habitat umbrella protection efforts. Each of those species has a different pressure, but they're all facing poaching and or habitat destruction or multiple facets within there. So within our organization, we have what we call our four main pillars of conservation efforts. So anti-poaching, which includes the obvious, but that includes training rangers, equipping rangers, adding technology, developing technology in the field, our canine units, training canines, developing canine teams, and deploying canines, as well as our other integrated operations there, our mounted anti-poaching units, and we have a wide variety of joint operation-based details within anti-poaching. Next, in counter wildlife trafficking, we work locally, regionally, state and or nationally, and federally, and then internationally with different partners to secure the threats and or target the bigger players within these roles and regions for these different pressures. Our community-based conservation programs range from something very similar to the Cool Crafts, where we have programs where we've helped our partners develop vocational skills and markets and crafts, and we buy them in bulk, as well as school programs, in situ, ex situ, and we do professional vocational training for community selection of rangers, for guiding programs and for anti-poaching programs. And then last but not least, our general conservation category, which is the most known publicly, would be supporting research, supporting reintroduction, habitat rewilding, corridors, and the veterinary side or the spay neuter side of the projects and zones. So depending on the pressure in the region and the commitment on what we're doing, we're generally pretty busy all the time. We have different team leaders in charge of different regions and countries and species and programs. That said, a lot of folks moving and going, including myself. So right now, I'm lucky enough to be sitting at my house in San Diego, but I leave tomorrow and I will be gone for months. So it's going to be, and I've only been home for a short time. So depending on what we're doing, we are always working in the vein of applied conservation in these habitat zones. And it just depends a lot on where we're at with each zone, partner, and pressure. So we like to stack each of these projects on top of each other so that we can take an area from scratch and build it up to a fully functioning, self-sustained operation. So they're not reliant on us, but we are mentors and partners and collaborators so that we can fledge them on their own so that each zone becomes locally independent with their own resources. And that's really important thing to note for conservation, especially for all of us tuning in from the States. It has to come from within the communities and within the cultures and within those sites to be sustainable. And so we need to empower the local communities, the youth, fight corruption, and set up the infrastructure so that they can succeed. That way we have more teams, more role players, more support, and more progress versus essentially what we like to say we avoid is the hand up versus the handout. And that is a big thing in conservation that is a lot of organizations are starting to catch up on. So flashing forward, what do I actually do? Even though I am the founder and the executive director, I still work counter wildlife trafficking. I still work anti-poaching, and I work ranger training and community-based conservation, wildlife game capture, conservation film programs, and fixing quite regularly. So a lot of them actually overlap each other on the same. So if we're training rangers and darting rhinos, or in this case, actually for you guys in the relevance of cheetahs, we reintroduced cheetahs to rewilded habitat and expanded habitat corridor sections last year. We are also filming or doing technology ads, monitoring veterinary services and community programs all within that same space. So within a week, we might literally be hitting all of our action columns depending on each project zone. Everybody on the team wears more than one hat. That is something that is very common in conservation. So to touch on the relevancy of careers in conservation, you don't have to have animal experience. In fact, a lot of times the most relative experience is something that nonprofits need from a business aspect. So marketing, social media, photo, videography, editing, presentation building, you name it in that spectrum, and that actually adds you to a lot more value to a nonprofit or a community-based program because you can become the instructor, the manager, and the co-worker for that program under that detail while getting to go do the cool wildlife things. The conservation scene is very difficult to truly break into for the in situ zone. And I only say that because I don't want to mislead anybody, but it is possible. And there's not one road to do it on the same topic. So don't get discouraged or feel like you have to do this or that to get yourself all the way through into the field. Because essentially once you're in the field, there's a million plus things that need to get done and people need help with everything. So if you're looking to diversify your skill sets so you're more usable, learning how to do some of the things that may be everyday jobs actually are the things that make you a resume standout in a lot of different applications. Specifically, if you're in the zone where the heavier players are masters or PhDs. You don't have to have a master's or a PhD to work in conservation. So you can have a diverse skill set to be applied. So grant writing, yes, huge. Corporate sponsorships and pledge and donation liaising. So that is another one in that same factor. If you can wheel and deal with companies and get them on board, just like grant writing, it's its own language. It's its own hawk game if you're going to get in there. It takes a lot of skill and time. So I share that because in the careers and conservation field, it's now becoming a lot more available and known. So a lot of people are getting their foot in the door by having a light background or a deep background in animal stuff, but they're doing photography, videography, social media, website building. Sorry, that's a huge one as well. Even accounting, as funny as that sounds, if you can do the books, there are so many things that are usable, and it's in the small business realm. Now, when it comes to being really integrated into like the law enforcement side, that's where it gets really complex too. Yeah, lawyers, attorneys, those are great. The law enforcement side is really tricky per region, per country, everything in between. Anti-poaching is not necessarily for everyone. It's very dangerous. It's not necessarily because of the poachers, the elements and the animals themselves. But that said, also jurisdiction-based issues and visas and so on and so forth. So working on designations for national park or private game reserve or federal or international all have different standards, roles, and responsibilities. So that's more of the modern approach in conservation now. So there's a lot of ways if you're looking to get forward into conservation. You can use conduits of training through the US and become beneficial to the needs of the field. And there are endless ways. The biggest start, though, is just to get your foot out there and get your foot in the door. Volunteer with organizations that are in situ and working on the ground on different applied programs. Because that will be very involved. So, do the locals initially accept you? Yeah, so that's a fun story. So I was the first American to go through the Kruger Park training programs. So I actually went in end of 2013 when I graduated. I got selected for Specialized Rhino Protection Unit. There's a lot of division in South Africa. I'll put it that way. There's a lot of division in South Africa. The common word is xenophobia. So this tribal group and this language group versus this group, Afrikaans versus British heritage. And as the American, I got a lot of heat. So it's not always going to be easy. And even today, I'm going to just straight say it, as a non-white dude being in the bush, I get a lot of shit. So there's no true easy way. You're going to get a lot of flack one way or another. And I'd say just play it by the right ethics and do what you're supposed to do, and it'll be fine. Now, that was when I was in training. That was the funny thing, is when I was in training, of course, the South African instructors wanted to ream me as the American. But once they couldn't break me and I passed, I was one of them. And at this point where I'm at, I can walk in a lot of places where a lot of white South Africans cannot. I can go into communities in a tank top and board shorts, and I can go talk to gang leaders. I can go talk to mom and pop shops. I can talk to kids. And a lot of the kids in a lot of the communities where we work know me. And so I can safely go in, to the point where it's specifically South Africa. A lot of our partners from other organizations think I'm absolutely crazy. But I believe in having a true relationship with the communities for progress. And so a lot of times on like a day where I'm not doing something super heavy in the law enforcement side, I'll go play netball with the kids or soccer. And that's really important because they are going to eventually become hoping that they're going to eventually become part of the ranger field, the conservation field, or the guiding field. And so they have to have people to look forward to. I can't speak it fluently, but I can understand about 80–90% of it most of the time. For Afrikaans. So the question was, can I speak Afrikaans? I know more Zulu and Xhosa based on that stuff. But I'm not only in South Africa, so I do spend a lot of time in a lot of different African countries. So most commonly, the general languages are going to be English or French between the two different zones. So speaking French and English is probably the most universal combination. Afrikaans is still pretty dominant in the bush zones of South Africa, but they'll still speak English. So yeah, so that's kind of what I do in a nutshell, what we do in a nutshell, and I really do want to reserve the time to be able to bounce questions because I feel like giving you guys a scripted presentation doesn't really help you guys crack the codes on where you guys may be looking to go in the field. And I think it's really important for anybody who's trying to continue to push that direction.
So I know there's a lot of aspects to your role. Have you found that one is more beneficial, or have you seen more success rate from one versus another?
Sure. So I guess the first question I'd have in response to that is, what kind of success are we looking at? So are we looking at reduced numbers in poaching? Are we looking at reduced conversion rates of young community youth becoming poachers? Or are we looking at wildlife population survivability? So to each category, there is a different metric. And some of them, in our role for conservation, I will commonly say today, tomorrow, 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years. Those are your footholds for success. So today's success may be to look at like last year. We just finished 10 years worth of long-term projects, which set the platform for 30 black rhino to be reintroduced into habitat they've been extinct for 200 years. And that was because of what we did over 10 years. But to get to the 10-year mark, we had to start going to different ranger teams and different reserves and seeing where their weaknesses were. And so on day one, it might be training rangers, testing them, building those teams up over a 5-year plan, getting them to that operational standard, integrating canines and technology, then working with the ecologists so that they have the measurable metrics for survivability, space, and everything on the reserve, and use that data metrics for another 5 years. And then you have to go through the government approval processes and everything else. So I can't say, if you're looking at like one avenue of conservation, there's not one that truly outweighs the other in its value if you're looking at the big picture. But if you're looking at the crisis mode of things, the biggest important bridge is the community relation to conservation and integrating them. That is probably the most immediate and biggest success in the long run and short run, because poverty is what's driving a lot of our issues, as well as overpopulation and overusage of the space. So when we can use education and integrated conservation applications, you can spin that pretty quick when you start having allies in the communities, and those allies grow and multiply and start taking roles of their own, versus like, quote, just you or just the nonprofit trying to make this progress, which it always feels like an uphill battle in conservation. So I guess I would leave it with that. But if there's like a specific avenue, like anti-poaching, for example, once the team is equipped with the right gear and they're trained to a functional operational standard, which is not really common across most of the world. A lot of ranger teams have almost no training, which is sad. Once you get them up to a functional level, the single most successful tool, no matter what, is canines. That will amplify the success of wildlife protection and conservation in most cases over 70%. So that's 70% more successes in captures, 70% more successes in facing them off the reserve before, and also interdictions and getting those actual prosecutions. So those big moves for at least anti-poaching are huge. It also helps with ranger retention and morale. So there's a lot of big plays in there. I saw a question, let me see really quick. What does the canine training look like here in the US? Is there a need for training in the States? We don't actually train our canines in the US. We will green start dogs or found lines here, but we do most of our training actually in the countries of origin, with the exception of some of our canines come straight out of the Netherlands, but we do a heavy foundational start there. The reason is cost for the most part, and environmental stability. So a lot of the canines can have really good working attributes, but they will not be environmentally stable around all the animals. So it's easier to integrate them earlier on and then advance your training modules that way. It can be done, of course, and we have done it. But we found that the best way to success is to get them over by about 6 or 8 months of age, and then continue on with the operational and functional trainings. So for the canine side of things, you guys mentioned scat detection. That is one that is used pretty much all over the place. That's a great job in conservation. You can actually do in the US as well. You have counter wildlife trafficking, which is usually scent detection, and that's ports, vehicles, entry and exit gates, or what we call access control to reserve zones, and or searches. There's tracking and trailing canines, and then there's bite dogs. And then in several situations, at least for us in the operational bush zones, we have dual or multi-purpose canines. So they'll track or trail and bite, and then we'll have our scent canines as well for different things. So canines are rad. I love the canines. They're obviously, you can see this is one of our canines, Thor. He was trained out of the Netherlands originally, then we transferred him down into South Africa, and he tracks live penguins. So penguins rescued from the wildlife trade get reintroduced to one of our partner project sites. Once they're rehabbed and reintroduced, they have a digital tracking collar that's like a GPS, but it fits like a Jurassic Park style map. And when the tag batteries die, we use Thor to go find them, or if there's an emergency, we use Thor to go find them. And then when Thor's not doing that, he's man tracking poachers that are trying to break into the reserve. So love to use Thor as an example of a really different category for conservation. Very fun category. So if we have, and of course, throw other questions. Hero rats. Yeah, hero rats are great, honestly. They're great, especially in the cargo space, because of how you can use them. I haven't worked with them personally, so I can't speak too much on them, but we as GCF have canines in 2 of the world's busiest African airports. So the busiest and the second busiest for port control and access, and they search cargo for a lot of different things. And we actually are going to be, we've rotated, last week we rotated one of our canines off of counter wildlife trafficking at the airport to do endangered plant species detection, because that's a huge illegal black market right now. Mm-hmm. So versatile, so many different things. Any other questions?
If you could go back and tell your younger self anything, would you change any of the ways that you came up into your career?
That is a good question. I have not had that one before.
Good job.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I would say I was lucky enough that I started a lot of things young, and I had a lot of good mentors to lean on. So I can't say I would have started earlier, or if I physically could have even started earlier, but I think I probably would have retired from the zoological field earlier, knowing what I do, because I was lucky enough to have a tenure high enough when I actually left the wild animal park, or now the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, that I was able to retire when they offered it during the early stages of COVID. And I was leaving a lot already, and I was using a lot of my accrued time. And because I was very senior, I had a lot of time to use. So I think if I look back, I would have probably left that sooner, just because it I had a lot of freedom then, but I have so much more now. And the craziness of this field is like sometimes I'm down in Central America working on programs, and sometimes I'm in Asia, I'm in the US, and I'm in Africa, and the schedule changes all over the place. So the flexibility is like one of the biggest things I need, because of the intensity of the caseloads and the sites and the durations. Because you can't be like, oh, I'm going to be here for 2 weeks. You might be there for 2 weeks, and then we say the wind always blows in Africa, or TIA, it changes every day. So you might have to stay another 2 weeks. So that kind of thing happens regularly. So I think if I were to go back to my 20s, or like my early 20s, and told myself just leave now or leave earlier, that's probably what I would have done.
Nice.
I think a few people have said that in the zoo field before.
Yeah. I don't want to harp on it, but yeah.
I'm like, I'll leave by
I'll say this.
40.
There are a lot of other options. There are plenty of options. You don't have to work in the zoo field to be relevant to conservation.
Yeah, for those that have been on these events before, we've had wildlife photography conservationists and different media specialists, filmographers that have done this, including we have field researchers, we have veterinarians, we have a lot of different fields. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we wanted to start these events, is to just really highlight that there is so many moving parts and so many needed positions. And Mike, I'm glad you brought that up in your talk, that you don't have to work on the grounds in a foreign country. You don't have to necessarily work with animals. If you're a people person, if you're you love being behind a computer, but you love wildlife and you want to do something to help, there is a position for you. So you heard Amanda kind of talk about the roles that she does with ACK, and not once did she say she's gets to raise a cheetah with us. So there's definitely different ways that we can support conservation without necessarily needing that animal care experience or wanting to do it. Some people are allergic to animals. Maybe they can't do it. But there are so many different careers that you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing I see a lot too is we have a lot of folks who approach us and are on our programs, and they hyper focus on a certain field. And that actually probably is the most detrimental thing you could do, is if you hyper focus. Because, like, to give an example again, like every reserve, and there are hundreds of reserves, every reserve is like a small functioning city. So there are a million hats to be worn or employed in those places, and you're still working conservation. Sorry, there was a question.
That was me.
Oh, there it is. Okay. There are opportunities to volunteer with GCF. So we have 4 stages of volunteer opportunities. We have working with us in the States, which is one we always recommend. A lot of it's remote work or it's project development or fundraising, but you get to understand the inner workings of some stuff. We have professional development programs where you get to go alongside an instructor or one of our program managers in the field and actually get to work on that project with them, alongside them, and train. So that's a lot more hands-on, a lot more bush life. And then we have two types of eco tours. We have our eco tours where the groups will kind of stay at like a regular like lodge and do a little bit of the professional development programs, and they get a taste of community-based conservation, anti-poaching, and we do wildlife game capture for relocation, genetics, or reintroduction on those trips. And then we have a couple of our celebrity ambassador-based eco tours as well. So there's more than one way to get involved. The one I recommend for
Say
folks wanting to
celebrity?
get into the field. What's that?
Did you say
Yeah,
celebrity?
so we have several celebrity ambassadors that are on the GCF team, and we run eco tours where you get to go on the eco tour with the celebrity, myself, and we take you to the bush on these programs. You stay in a lodge, and then we do the same programs. So we do wildlife game capture, relocation, community-based conservation days, and we do several different anti-poaching activities.
Interesting.
So yeah, so those ones work well. So how to get more involved as a dog trainer? I've been to stuff. Oh, so you've been with Q09, so you've been with Christian. So the best way to get involved with canine training is, well, if you've been a canine, so if you train canines yourself, learning the disciplines that are applicable to the field, and then probably going to a specific unit. So Christian is an instructor. He does canine trainings, and we contract Christian in as one of our instructors for our ranger training programs. But you can go to several different reserves and kind of learn this stuff. Now, the thing is, a lot of European and US dog trainers are more advanced than most canine trainers in Africa. Not a hit on anybody's skill, but to be able to be more versatile, if you can train under different disciplines of canine working behaviors and bring that skill set over, that's where you're most usable. Because of prosecution and jurisdiction-based details, being a canine handler in many countries is not as easy as just coming over to do it, because if you are the one that, for example, makes the arrest, you have to be the one that goes to court, and then that dog has to be certified and you have to be certified. So coming over in the canine training realm is more like working in a collaborative and joint operation style. So I'd say that's one. So going back over into South Africa, Christian's a great resource. He's going to be in one of many different places. He's a very good trainer, and he's operationally trained. So he and I have worked extensively on different programs. So he's a great resource to train with. But for getting your foot in the door, it's very hard in South Africa. There's more opportunities in other African countries to be more integrated as a canine handler and trainer. And of course, if anybody has any other questions, like if something comes to you, you guys can contact me via social media, or you can reach out to the GCF page, and our social media team will get that information to me. So if there's something that pops up, or there's something more specific, or you want to brainstorm ideas, we do that a lot. So you don't have to try to fit it into this time presentation. There are more opportunities. We make ourselves available to help folks get themselves into the industry.
Awesome, thank you. All right. Perfect. We just have some thank yous in the chat. I did put the website in the chat for those interested.
Perfect. Awesome.
And
I'd say our social media channels are the most active. So if you do want to go to Global Conservation Force, Facebook and Instagram are our two most active. And just because of the work we do, we probably only share about 5 to 10% of what we're actually doing. So there's a lot more going on. There's just a lot of things that we have to time delay because of different sensitivities or court cases, or sometimes we don't even post things because of just what we're working on.
Safety.
Yeah, safety.
Yeah. Going off of what you just said, is there anything in the works, or have you guys thought about doing any kind of like a documentary?
Yes, so that's actually a great one. So there have been now 5 different documentaries about GCF. There is one that we're actually touring on circuit with right now. So I actually will be in Texas tomorrow for the documentary. The most recent release is Holding the Front Line. The one before that is Save. Gosh, oh my gosh, Save the Horns, and then that's our Save the Horns campaign and program. That's with Bear Grylls, Coyote Peterson, and Brave Wilderness. Before that, it's Making a Ranger, and then we had NBC and Nat Geo follow us in the field. So we have another documentary that's following us in May, and it's called Guardians of Conservation. So they've released their social media channels now, but they're going to be filming with us for the 3rd time, and they're planning to go Netflix. So
Oh, wow.
Holding the Front Line will go Netflix or Paramount or Hulu after it's done with the film festival circuit. But we're screening it. It's still got several different calendar dates for film festivals, but we're playing at High Meadow Winery on Sunday in Texas, which is an hour or so outside of Austin. So yeah, we do quite a bit of filming. And luckily, I would say the one that encapsulate our Southern African programs the best right now would be Holding the Front Line and Save the Horns. So the 2 of those are like, if you were to watch, one would be almost like part 1, and the next one would be part 2. So
Which one's part 1?
Save the Horns. So that one's under the Coyote Peterson and Brave Wilderness channel.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with us when we were setting the stage to do the Habitat Expansion Corridor program and the Black Rhino reintroduction. And then Holding the Front Line comes in with us last year at the beginning of the year. And then we film a follow-up actually with Brave Wilderness and a couple other celebrities in September to close out the reintroduction of cheetahs and black rhinos and habitat expansion and corridors. So yeah,
Cool.
there's always a wheel spinning.
And when do you take vacation, and what does that look like? What you're doing right now?
I took a little bit of a break, like the last 2 weeks, which was nice. I wasn't on patrol. I wasn't training rangers, and I wasn't training canines. So I was spending time with my dogs, my canines, and my wife, and took a little trip down to the Galapagos for some fun.
Sick. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
So
so much. I know we've taken a little bit of your time, and you're flying to Texas tomorrow to be camera ready, maybe, or interview ready.
Yeah, we'll be busy. So the actual event's Sunday, but yeah, tomorrow we've got the pre-staging stuff.
Yeah. Well, have fun.
Thank you.
You're gonna be the celebrity people want to travel with.
Oh man. I hope that's not the take on it. We like to run super normal, so.
Well, if you are back in San Diego in, I think, the beginning of October, we're going to try to run a nice big fundraiser here. So we'd love it if you can make it, if you're in town.
I should be. I think I come back by the 16th of October.
Perfect. Oh, wait. I think it's the beginning of October.
Shoot.
I was like, no. But
yeah, I'll still be in Africa.
Okay.
Yeah, keep me posted.
Well, if you have some time off in the middle of or the beginning to middle of November, I'm leading a trip to Kenya. If anybody wants to join, feel free to reach out to me on my social, or you can get a hold of me through ACK. But thank you so much, Mike, for your time. I always love listening to you. I think it's still crazy. I'm one of those that I'm like, how are you doing what you're doing right now? But takes a lot of guts and a lot of passion, a lot of dedication. And so great job. There's not many people who could do what you're doing right now. So we appreciate
Well,
that.
thank you.
Absolutely. And we're going to go ahead and just go through those slides one more time if you guys are interested in supporting ACK financially. If not, I get it. We're all animal care people. We don't, or I think we are maybe. We don't make a lot of money, but just outreach, letting your friends know about ACK and what we do, following us on social media, just joining our newsletter, those kind of things all help us out. We're in the process right now of putting together our 4th annual virtual auction. So follow us on social media to find out more information about that. But we have amazing products straight from Kenya and a lot of other donated items that you could bid on, and then proceeds go to the field work that ACK is doing. So it's always fun to get something unique for yourself or as a gift. I have probably so much stuff back here that I've bought from ACK over the years. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. And we are going to try to hold this event every few months. If you guys have any recommendations or you're in the field yourself and you would like to present, just let us know. And we'll stay on for a little bit if anyone wants to chat. But thank you guys so much for joining.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me, and thank you all for attending tonight. I'm gonna be heading out. Unless there's any last minute questions, feel free to shoot them. But again, if anybody needs to reach out to me, you can catch me on my social media channels, or you can reach out to the GCF pages, and our social media crew will get you guys to me. So, but thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you, Allison. We're going to play the telephone game where I'm not going to be the first one to hang up. And then there was 3. Awesome. Well, little bumpy at first, but we got through it.
Yeah.
That's why I like to say this is casual and
yeah.
you know.
I was telling Delaney earlier, I was like, technology has not been my friend recently. I should have had someone else do this because today has just been,
Yeah.
make sure I